The businessman walked through the airport terminal with steady steps. His leather briefcase hung from his shoulder, and his navy blue suit was perfectly pressed. He had just finished a business meeting that would change everything. The deal was done. Papers were signed. His company would expand into 3 new countries by next year. He felt tired but happy. The flight home was supposed to be simple and relaxing. He had paid for a first-class ticket because he wanted to stretch his legs and maybe sleep a little. After 3 days of meetings and presentations, he deserved some comfort. At the gate, he showed his boarding pass to the agent. She smiled and welcomed him aboard. He walked down the jet bridge and entered the plane. The first-class cabin was on the left side, just past the entrance. Wide leather seats, extra legroom, and soft lighting welcomed early passengers. He found his seat 2A right by the window. He placed his briefcase in the overhead bin and sat down. The seat was comfortable, just as he expected. He pulled out his phone to send a quick message to his wife. "Boarding now. See you tonight. Love you." Other passengers started entering the plane. A woman in expensive jewelry took seat 1C. An older man in a business suit sat across the aisle. Nobody questioned them. Nobody asked to see their tickets twice. They simply sat down and made themselves comfortable. The businessman looked out the window and watched the ground crew load luggage. He thought about his children. His daughter had a dance recital next week. His son needed help with a science project. He smiled, thinking about being home. "Excuse me, sir." A voice interrupted his thoughts. He looked up. A flight attendant stood in the aisle. Her name tag read Jennifer. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight and her red lipstick was bright against her pale skin. Her smile seemed forced, not reaching her eyes. "Yes?" He responded politely. "I think you might be in the wrong section," she said. Her voice was loud enough that other passengers looked over. He felt confused. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "This is first class," she explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "Economy is toward the back of the plane." The businessman felt his stomach tighten. He knew what was happening, but he stayed calm. He had dealt with this before, though never quite so directly. "I have a first-class ticket," he said, keeping his voice steady. "This is my assigned seat." Jennifer's smile faded. "Can I see your boarding pass?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed her the digital boarding pass on his screen. Seat 2A, first class. His name was clearly visible. She looked at it and frowned. There must be some kind of mistake in the system." "There's no mistake," he said quietly. "This is my seat." "Sir, sometimes the app shows the wrong information," she insisted. "Let me check with the gate agent to verify your actual seat assignment." He felt other passengers staring now. Some pretended to look at their phones, but he could see them glancing over. The woman with the jewelry whispered something to the man next to her. "My boarding pass was scanned at the gate," he explained. "Everything was fine. The agent welcomed me aboard." Jennifer crossed her arms. "I just need to verify. It will only take a moment." She walked away before he could respond. He sat there, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes. His face felt hot. His hands gripped the armrests. He had paid over $2,000 for this ticket. He had every right to be here. 2 minutes passed. They felt like 20. Another passenger, a young white man in jeans and a t-shirt, boarded and took seat 3B behind him. Nobody stopped him. Nobody asked questions. He just sat down and put in his earbuds. Jennifer returned with another crew member, an older man with gray hair and a senior flight attendant badge. His name tag said Robert. "Sir, we need to sort this out," Robert said. His voice was firm but not quite as accusatory as Jennifer's. "Can you step out into the aisle so we can check the seating chart?" "I already showed her my boarding pass," the businessman said. He could hear the frustration creeping into his voice, but he fought to control it. Getting angry would only make things worse. He knew that. "I understand, but we need to verify with the system," Robert replied. "Sometimes tickets get duplicated or there are booking errors." The businessman stood up slowly. He was tall, over 6 feet, and some people nearby seemed to shift uncomfortably. He noticed this. He had noticed it his whole life. His size combined with his skin color made some people nervous for no good reason. He stepped into the aisle. Jennifer had a tablet now, scrolling through screens. "What's your name?" she asked. He told her. She typed it in. "And your confirmation number." He showed her his phone again, pointing to the confirmation code. She scrolled some more, her lips pressed together. Robert looked over her shoulder. More passengers were boarding now. They had to squeeze past the scene in first class. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed at the delay. A few looked sympathetic. "I'm going to need to see your ID," Jennifer said finally. "My ID?" The businessman felt his patience wearing thin. "You don't ask anyone else for ID." "Sir, we're just trying to confirm your identity," Robert interjected. "It's standard procedure when there's a question about ticketing." "There is no question about my ticketing," he said, his voice slightly louder now. "My boarding pass is valid. It was scanned at the gate. I have my confirmation number." "What exactly is the problem?" A woman boarding the plane stopped in the entrance to first class. She was young, maybe in her 30s, with brown hair and glasses. She held her phone up, clearly recording. "This is ridiculous," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're not asking anyone else these questions. Just let the man sit down." Jennifer's face flushed red. "Ma'am, please take your seat. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us," the woman replied. "We can all see what's happening here." Another passenger pulled out their phone. Then another. The businessman felt the situation spiraling. He didn't want this attention. He just wanted to go home. He pulled out his wallet and showed them his driver's license, his credit card, anything to end this nightmare. Robert examined the ID carefully, comparing the photo to his face. Jennifer checked the name against her tablet again. "See?" the businessman said. "Everything matches. Can I please sit down now?" They exchanged glances. Neither wanted to admit they were wrong. "We also need to verify that this ticket was purchased legitimately," Jennifer said. "Sometimes credit cards are stolen and used to buy tickets." The businessman felt something break inside him. Not his composure, not yet, but his hope that this would end reasonably. "You want to verify my purchase?" His voice was ice cold now. "You want to check if I stole someone's credit card to buy a plane ticket?" "It's just procedure," she mumbled, but her confidence was fading. "No, it's not procedure," he said. "You didn't check her card." He pointed to the woman with jewelry. "You didn't check his." He gestured to the older businessman. "You're only checking mine." The cabin had gone completely silent except for the sound of phones recording. At least 5 people were now filming openly. Robert cleared his throat. "Sir, we're going to need you to remain calm." "I am calm," he replied. "I've been calm this entire time while you've accused me of being in the wrong seat, having a fraudulent ticket and stealing a credit card. And I've remained calm through all of it." Jennifer looked at her tablet again. Her hands were shaking slightly. "The ticket appears to be valid," she admitted quietly. "Appears to be?" He couldn't keep the sarcasm out of his voice. "It's valid," Robert said more firmly. He was trying to end this before it got worse. "You can take your seat, sir. We apologize for the confusion." "Confusion?" The businessman stared at them both. "That's what you're calling this? Confusion?" He wanted to say more. He wanted to tell them exactly what this was. But he was tired, so tired. Tired of fighting these battles. Tired of proving he belonged in spaces he had every right to occupy. He sat back down without another word. Jennifer and Robert moved away quickly, disappearing toward the front galley. The young woman who had first spoken up walked past his row. "I'm sorry that happened to you," she said softly. "I recorded everything." He nodded, unsure how to respond. "Thank you." As the plane finished boarding, he stared out the window again. His hands were still gripping the armrests. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. The plane's engine started. The captain's voice came over the speaker, welcoming everyone aboard and announcing their flight time. But the businessman heard none of it. He could only think about the humiliation he had just endured, witnessed by dozens of strangers, captured on multiple phones. He didn't know it yet, but those videos were already being uploaded. In a few hours, the world would be watching too. The businessman walked through his front door and dropped his briefcase by the stairs. The house smelled like dinner, something with garlic and herbs. His wife called out from the kitchen, "You're home. How was the flight?" He paused, trying to decide how much to tell her right now. But before he could answer, his 8-year-old son came running down the hallway and crashed into him with a hug. "Dad, you're back. Did you bring me anything?" He laughed despite everything and hugged his son tight. "Maybe. Go check my briefcase side pocket." His son ran off excitedly. His wife appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. He shook his head. "Let me wash up first. "I'll tell you after dinner." But his phone kept buzzing in his pocket. Over and over. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Dozens of notifications. Text messages, emails, missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. His wife saw his expression change. "What is it?" He opened his social media app, something he rarely used. The first thing he saw was a video. The thumbnail showed him standing in the airplane aisle, Jennifer and Robert beside him. The caption read, "Black man humiliated by racist flight attendant despite having valid first-class ticket." It had been posted 2 hours ago. It already had 50,000 views, 2,000 comments, 8,000 shares. "Oh no," he whispered. His wife came closer. "What? Show me." He turned the phone so she could see. They watched together as the video played. It showed Jennifer questioning him, asking for his boarding pass, then his ID. It showed Robert backing her up. It captured the moment when other passengers started defending him. The video quality was surprisingly clear. You could hear every word. You could see his face trying to stay calm. You could see the other passengers' reactions. His wife's hand covered her mouth. "Baby, this is awful." "When did this happen?" "Today, a few hours ago." She scrolled through the comments. Thousands of people were outraged, angry, calling for the flight attendants to be fired, calling for the airline to be boycotted. Then she gasped, "Honey, there are more videos. Look." Someone else had posted from a different angle. This video showed Jennifer walking past him without offering drinks while serving everyone else. The caption said, "It gets worse. Watch how she treats him after accusing him." Another video showed the moment in the galley when Jennifer said, "How does someone like that afford first class?" That one was spreading even faster. The comments were furious. His daughter came downstairs, tablet in hand. She was 12 and always on social media. "Dad, are you okay?" "Everyone's talking about you online." He felt his stomach drop. "You saw the videos?" "My friend sent them to me. She didn't know it was you at first, but then I recognized your voice." Her eyes filled with tears. "Dad, that lady was so mean to you." He pulled her into a hug. "I'm okay, sweetheart. I promise." But his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He sat down on the couch and started going through messages. His business partner had texted, "Just saw what happened. Are you all right? Do you want me to issue a statement?" His assistant had called 3 times. His lawyer had emailed. His college roommate had sent a message of support. Then he saw that news outlets were picking up the story. Not just small blogs, but major news websites. Billionaire businessman racially profiled on flight. Video shows flight attendant humiliating black passenger. Airline faces backlash. After first-class discrimination caught on camera. Wait, billionaire? He scrolled further and found an article that had identified him. They had figured out who he was. His company name. His net worth. His background growing up in poverty and building his business from nothing. "They know who I am," he told his wife. "The media knows." She sat beside him, reading over his shoulder. "This is everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everyone's sharing these videos." His phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Hi, is this?" The voice said his full name. "I'm a reporter with CNN. We'd like to get your statement about what happened on the flight today. Do you have a moment?" I'm not ready to make a statement yet," he said. "I understand. But I wanted you to know that we're covering this story tonight. If you'd like to share your side before we air, I'm happy to listen." He took the reporter's number and hung up. Immediately the phone rang again. Another reporter. Then another. He turned off his phone. His wife held his hand. "We need to talk to your PR team. This is getting too big to ignore." He nodded. She was right. But part of him just wanted to hide. To pretend it never happened. To not be the face of yet another story about racism in America. His daughter was reading comments on her tablet. "Dad, people are really angry. They're saying they'll never fly that airline again. There's a hashtag and everything." He looked at her screen. Sure enough, a hashtag was trending. Within hours, it had been used hundreds of thousands of times. People were sharing their own stories in the comments. Other black travelers describing times they'd been questioned, followed, or treated with suspicion while traveling. Stories about being told they didn't look like they belonged in first class. About being asked if they were sure they had the right ticket. About watching white passengers get treated with respect while they got interrogated. One comment stood out. "This is why representation matters. Even when you're rich, even when you've earned everything, they still see your skin first. The businessman felt something crack in his chest. He had spent his whole life trying to be successful enough that this wouldn't happen, rich enough that people would respect him automatically, accomplished enough that his achievements would speak for themselves. But it hadn't mattered. Jennifer had seen his skin color before she saw anything else. His wife squeezed his hand. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Part of me wants to sue them. Part of me wants to just move on and forget it happened." "You can't forget it happened," she said gently. The whole world saw it. His son came back with a toy from the briefcase and climbed onto his lap, oblivious to the crisis unfolding. The businessman hugged him close, grateful for the simple comfort of his child's presence. Over the next hour, the story exploded even further. Celebrities started commenting on it. Civil rights activists shared the videos. Politicians weighed in. The airline's social media accounts were flooded with angry messages. A famous actor tweeted, "Watched this video and felt sick. This is why we still have so far to go." That man had every right to be there, but they treated him like a criminal. A prominent activist shared, "They asked for his ID. His boarding pass wasn't enough. His ticket wasn't enough. They needed to prove he wasn't a thief. Tell me that's not racism." The airline's Twitter account tried to respond. "We are aware of the incident that occurred on Flight 447 today. We take all concerns seriously and are conducting a thorough investigation. We apologize for any distress caused." The response only made people angrier. "Any distress caused?" one person replied. "You racially profiled him, say it. Use the words." By evening, the story was on national television. News anchors discussed it. Panels of experts analyzed it. Some defended the flight attendants, saying they were just doing their job. But most agreed it was clear discrimination. The businessman's phone, even turned off, haunted him. He knew that when he turned it back on, there would be hundreds more messages, media requests, interview offers, probably some hate mail too, from people who didn't like that he was speaking out even though he hadn't said anything yet. His wife made dinner, but nobody was very hungry. They sat around the table, the television on in the background showing yet another news segment about the incident. "Is this going to ruin everything we built?" he asked quietly. His wife shook her head firmly. "No, if anything, people are supporting you. Look at the comments. Look at what people are saying. They're on your side. But my business partners, my investors, what if they think I'm too controversial now?" "Then they weren't the right partners," she said. "You did nothing wrong. You bought a ticket. You sat in your seat. Everything that happened after was because of their racism, not because of anything you did." His daughter spoke up. "Dad, my friend's mom says you should use this to make change. She says you have a platform now." He looked at his daughter, so earnest and hopeful. She believed he could turn this into something positive. Maybe she was right. That night, after the kids went to bed, he and his wife stayed up talking. They watched more news coverage, read more articles, saw the story spread across the world. In other countries, people were discussing it. International news outlets picked it up. American Airlines faces racism scandal. The story had become global. His wife finally convinced him to turn his phone back on so they could start planning a response with his team. The moment it powered up, it practically vibrated off the table with notifications. His PR advisor had sent a long email outlining their options. His lawyer wanted to discuss potential legal action. His business partner thought they should issue a statement condemning the airline. But what struck him most was an email from his mother. She didn't use email much, so seeing her name in his inbox made his heart hurt. The message was short. "Baby, I saw what they did to you. I'm so sorry. I'm so proud of how you handled it. Call me when you can." He called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. "Mama," he said, and his voice broke. "I know, baby. I know." They talked for an hour. She told him about times when similar things had happened to her, to his father, to his grandparents. She reminded him that this fight wasn't new, but that each generation pushed it forward a little more. "You have a chance to do something here," she said. "People are listening. Don't waste it." After he hung up, he sat in the dark living room thinking. The videos had been viewed millions of times now. Millions of people had watched him be humiliated. But millions of people also saw the truth of what happened. He thought about all the people who had shared their own stories in the comments. All the times this had happened to them without any cameras recording, without any public outcry. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe this was a chance to do something bigger than just get an apology from one airline. He grabbed his laptop and started typing. Not a statement, not yet, but notes, ideas, ways he could turn this moment into something meaningful. By the time he went to bed, the sun was starting to rise. The story was still spreading, still trending, still making waves, and he had decided he wouldn't hide from this. He wouldn't let it pass quietly. He was going to speak up. The airline's headquarters buzzed with panic by the next morning. The CEO arrived before sunrise to find his entire crisis management team already assembled in the conference room. Coffee cups covered the table. Laptops glowed with news articles and social media feeds. How bad is it? The CEO asked, though he already knew. He had been up all night watching his company's reputation collapse in real time. The head of public relations pulled up the numbers on a screen. The original video has 15 million views. The hashtag has been used over 1 million times. We've lost 40,000 followers on social media in 12 hours. Our stock dropped 3% yesterday and it's falling again this morning. Someone else added, major sponsors are asking questions. Delta passengers are posting videos of themselves cutting up their frequent flyer cards. Celebrities are calling for boycotts. The CEO rubbed his temples. What did we say in our initial response? We posted that we're investigating and we apologize for any distress caused. Any distress? The CEO looked up sharply. That's what we said? Any distress? The PR head nodded weakly. It was a standard template response. We thought, you thought wrong. The CEO stood and paced. This isn't standard. Show me the videos again. They played all 3 videos. The first showing the initial confrontation. The second showing Jennifer ignoring the businessman while serving others. The third, most damaging of all, showing her questioning how someone like that could afford first class. When they finished, the room was silent. This is indefensible, the CEO said quietly. We racially profiled a passenger, and not just any passenger, but someone who's been flying first class with us for years, someone who spends tens of thousands a year on our airline. His assistant spoke up. Sir, we pulled his account history. He's a platinum member. He's taken 47 flights with us in the past 2 years. Never a single complaint or incident. The CEO felt sick, and we treated him like a criminal. The legal team's representative cleared her throat. We need to be careful about what we admit publicly. Acknowledging racial profiling opens us up to lawsuits, not just from him but potentially from others. I don't care about lawsuits right now, the CEO snapped. I care about doing the right thing. What happened to that man was wrong. Period. And our weak apology made it worse. He looked at his team. I want a real statement drafted. One that acknowledges what happened. Uses the actual words. Racial profiling. Discrimination. And I want it to come from me personally, not some corporate account. The PR team scrambled to take notes. What about the flight attendants? Someone asked. Jennifer has been placed on administrative leave, HR reported. Robert too, since he supported her actions. But people are saying that's not enough. It's not, the CEO agreed. But we can't fire someone without a proper investigation. Even though we all know what happened. Get me everything on Jennifer's employment history. Have there been other complaints? Char shifted uncomfortably. We're pulling her file now. But preliminary review shows there were 2 previous complaints about similar behavior. Both were about passengers of color feeling they were treated differently. In both cases, the complaints were noted but no action was taken beyond additional training. The CEO's jaw tightened. So this wasn't her first time. And we did nothing. The previous incidents were less clear-cut, HR explained. No video evidence. Just passenger complaints versus employee accounts. That's even worse, the CEO said. We had warnings and ignored them. Now we have a national scandal. His phone buzzed with a message from the company's board chair. The text was brief. Emergency board meeting, 1 hour. Be ready to explain how we fix this. The CEO knew what that meant. His job was on the line. He turned to his communications director. I'm going to do a press conference today, this afternoon. I'll apologize directly to him by name on camera. Sir, legal advises against... I don't care what legal advises. This is about doing what's right, he paused. Have we reached out to him directly? Personally? We sent a formal letter to his attorney offering to discuss the matter. A formal letter? The CEO shook his head in disbelief. Get me his number. I'm calling him myself. Sir, he's not taking calls. He's been flooded with media requests. His assistant says he'll make a statement when he's ready. The CEO sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Outside his office windows, protesters were already gathering. He could see signs through the glass. Black Lives Matter. Flying while black shouldn't be a crime. Fire racist flight attendants. His phone exploded with notifications. He scrolled through them. Sponsors were pulling out. A major corporate client just canceled their travel contract worth millions. A famous musician announced she would never fly with them again. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Internal emails had leaked. Someone inside the company had shared a chain of messages to the media. Messages showing that HR had received those previous complaints about Jennifer. Messages showing managers discussing whether to take action and deciding not to. Messages that used words like oversensitive and playing the race card to describe passengers who complained. Who leaked these? The CEO demanded. We don't know yet, his head of security said. But they're everywhere. Every news outlet has them now. The CEO read through the leaked emails on his phone. Each one made the situation worse. They showed a pattern. Not just one flight attendant being racist, but a company culture that enabled it, that protected it, that dismissed valid complaints. His board meeting was brutal. Angry board members demanded answers. They talked about protecting shareholder value, about the millions of dollars in losses, about how to contain the damage. We need a scapegoat, one board member said. Jennifer was clearly wrong. We fire her publicly. Make an example. Show we don't tolerate this. It's not enough, another argued. The leaked emails show this is bigger than one person. We need systemic change. The CEO listened to them debate his company's reputation like it was a quarterly earnings report. Finally, he spoke. Here's what we're going to do. First, yes. Jennifer will be terminated after a full investigation completes its due process. But we're also implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff. Every single employee. And we're creating an oversight committee to review discrimination complaints with members from civil rights organizations. That will cost millions, someone protested. It should have been done years ago. The CEO shot back. The cost of not doing it is proving to be much higher. He spent the rest of the morning preparing for his press conference. His communications team drafted talking points. His lawyer reviewed every word, trying to minimize legal exposure while still being genuine. At 2 o'clock, the CEO stood in front of cameras and reporters. The company's press room was packed. Every major news outlet was there. He took a deep breath and began. Good afternoon. I'm here today to address the incident that occurred on Flight 447 2 days ago. Like many of you, I've watched the videos. I've seen a valued customer be treated with suspicion and disrespect for no reason other than the color of his skin. I've seen our employees fail to live up to the standards we claim to represent. He paused, making sure his next words were clear. What happened was racial profiling. It was discrimination, and it was completely unacceptable. I want to apologize directly to the passenger involved. He said the businessman's name. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Instead, you were humiliated. I'm deeply sorry. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. The flight attendant in question has been terminated effective immediately. We're also reviewing the actions of all crew members involved. But individual accountability isn't enough. The leaked internal emails show that we failed to take previous complaints seriously. That stops now. He outlined the new policies, the training programs, the oversight committee, the independent review of past discrimination complaints. I know that words aren't enough. We have to prove through our actions that we're committed to change. This will take time, resources, and sustained effort. But it's necessary. It's right. And it should have happened long ago. When he opened the floor to questions, they came fast. Will you resign over this? That's up to the board. But I take full responsibility for the culture that allowed this to happen. What about passengers who faced similar discrimination but didn't have video proof? We're setting up a dedicated hotline and review process. Anyone who feels they were discriminated against can file a complaint, and it will be thoroughly investigated. The businessman hasn't made a statement yet. Have you spoken with him? We've reached out through his representatives. I'd welcome the opportunity to apologize to him personally, but I respect that he needs time to process what happened. Some are calling for a complete boycott of your airline. What do you say to them? The CEO took a moment. I understand their anger. We have to earn back trust. That will take time. All I can ask is that people judge us by our actions going forward, not just our words today. The press conference lasted 45 minutes. By the time it ended, the CEO was drained. His PR team gathered to watch the response. Initial reactions were mixed. Some people appreciated the direct acknowledgement and apology. Others said it was too little, too late. Many pointed out that Jennifer was being scapegoated while the systemic problems remained. The businessman still hadn't responded publicly, but his lawyer released a brief statement. We appreciate the airline's acknowledgement of what occurred. We're reviewing their proposed actions and will respond in full when we're ready. That evening, protests at major airports grew larger. Passenger groups organized demonstrations. Some travelers actually rebooked their flights with other airlines, posting about it on social media. The airline's customer service lines were overwhelmed. Some people called to cancel their frequent flyer accounts. Others called to express support for the changes being made. Inside the company, employees were divided. Some were ashamed of what happened and eager to make changes. Others felt Jennifer was being unfairly blamed. A few even defended her actions, saying she was just being careful. Jennifer herself stayed hidden. Reporters camped outside her house, but she wouldn't talk. Her lawyer released a statement saying she regretted any offense caused and was seeking counseling. But people noticed she still hadn't actually apologized or admitted she was wrong. By the end of the week, the airline had lost over $100 million in market value. 3 major corporate clients had canceled contracts. 2 celebrity ambassadors had ended their partnerships, but the CEO kept pushing forward with reforms. He knew it wasn't enough just to wait for the story to fade. Real change had to happen, and he knew that soon the businessman would make his own statement. When that happened, the world would be listening. Everything depended on what he said next. The businessman sat in his home office, staring at blank pages of notes. For 5 days, he had stayed silent while the world exploded around him. 5 days of constant media requests, 5 days of his phone never stopping, 5 days of watching everyone else talk about his experience while he processed it privately. His wife knocked gently on the door. The PR team is here. Are you ready? He nodded, though he wasn't sure if ready was the right word. But it was time. The team assembled in his living room. His lawyer, his PR advisor, his business partner, and a media consultant they had brought in specifically for this. They had been preparing for days, crafting the perfect statement, making sure every word was legally sound and strategically smart. So we're thinking a written statement first, his PR advisor suggested. Then maybe some select interviews next week. Good Morning America has been asking. So has CNN, the businessman shook his head. No, I want to do a press conference today. I want to say everything I need to say all at once, and then I want to move forward. His lawyer shifted nervously. We should review exactly what you plan to say. One wrong word could complicate potential legal action against the airline. I don't care about legal action right now, the businessman replied. I care about saying what needs to be said. They spent the next 2 hours going over his speech. The PR team wanted him to be measured, diplomatic, careful not to seem too angry. His lawyer wanted him to avoid certain words that might affect future negotiations. His business partner worried about how this might impact investor relations, but his wife, sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. Stop, she said firmly. All of you, just stop. This is his story. His experience. Let him tell it his way. The room went quiet. She looked at her husband. Tell them what you told me that first night. Tell them what you told our kids. Tell them the truth. That's all anyone really wants to hear. The businessman looked at her and felt something settle in his chest. She was right. He had been so worried about saying the right thing that he had forgotten to just say the true thing. Okay, he told his team. I appreciate all your advice, but I'm going to do this my way. They set up the press conference for that afternoon at a hotel downtown. News spread quickly that he would finally speak. Every major outlet sent reporters. The hotel conference room filled to capacity. The businessman arrived with his wife beside him. No flashy entrance. No dramatic music. Just a man in a simple suit walking to a podium, about to tell his story. He looked out at the crowd of cameras and reporters. Somewhere behind them, he knew millions more would be watching online. His children were watching from home with his mother. His employees were watching. People around the world who had shared the videos were watching. He took a breath and began. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure you've been waiting for me to speak about what happened on that flight 5 days ago. I needed time to process it, to think about what I wanted to say, because this is about more than just one bad experience on one airplane. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I was born in a neighborhood where people didn't expect much from kids who looked like me. My mother cleaned houses. My father worked 2 jobs. We didn't have much money, but we had love and hope and the belief that if I worked hard enough, I could succeed. And I did. I built a business from nothing. I worked 18-hour days for years. I took risks. I failed and got back up. I eventually succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. His voice was steady, controlled. I achieved the American dream. I became wealthy, successful. I thought that success would protect me from certain things. I thought that if I wore the right clothes, spoke the right way, achieved enough, earned enough, gave enough back to my community, that I would finally be seen as equal. That I would finally just be seen as a person, not as a threat or a mistake or someone who doesn't belong. He looked down at his notes, then pushed them aside. He didn't need them anymore. But 5 days ago I learned that none of that matters. Not the money. Not the success. Not the achievements. When I sat down in my first-class seat, a seat I paid for with money I earned, I was still seen first as a black man who didn't belong there. The room was absolutely silent. That flight attendant looked at me and immediately assumed I was in the wrong place. Not because of anything I did. Not because I was acting suspiciously or causing problems, but because in her mind someone who looks like me doesn't belong in first class. And when I showed her my valid boarding pass, she still didn't believe me. She made me show my ID. She questioned whether my ticket was legitimate. She asked if maybe I had stolen someone's credit card to buy it. His voice grew stronger. Do you know what that feels like? To be treated like a criminal when you've done nothing wrong? To have strangers stare at you while you're being humiliated? To know that the only reason this is happening is because of your skin color? He paused, letting the questions hang in the air. Some people might think I'm being too sensitive, that the flight attendant was just doing her job, being thorough, being careful. But let me be clear, she didn't check anyone else's ticket. She didn't ask anyone else for their ID. She served drinks to other passengers and walked right past me. And then when she thought no one could hear, she questioned how someone like me could afford to be there. The businessman's hands gripped the podium. Someone like me. Those 3 words say everything. They reveal what she really thought. What she really believed. That people who look like me don't deserve to be in spaces like that. That we must have done something wrong to get there. That we should be grateful just to be allowed in, not treated as equals. A reporter in the front row was crying. Others looked uncomfortable but transfixed. This isn't just about one flight attendant. The leaked emails show that other passengers complained about her before. The airline knew, and they did nothing. They decided that complaints from passengers of color weren't important enough to take seriously. That protecting their employee was more important than protecting their customers from discrimination. He took a breath. I've spent the past 5 days reading comments and messages from thousands of people. So many of them shared their own stories. Being followed in stores, being stopped by police for no reason, being questioned in their own neighborhoods, being treated like they don't belong in colleges they worked hard to get into, or jobs they're qualified for, or homes they can afford. His voice softened, and I realized something. Yes, what happened to me was wrong. Yes, I deserve an apology, but I'm lucky. I have resources. I have lawyers and PR teams and a platform. Millions of people saw what happened to me and they were outraged on my behalf. But what about all the times this happens with no cameras recording? What about all the people who experience this same discrimination but have no voice? No platform? No way to fight back? The room remained silent. That's what keeps me up at night now. Not my own experience, but theirs. The single mother who gets questioned when she uses food stamps as if she must be cheating the system. The teenager who gets followed in a store just for browsing. The professional who works twice as hard to get half the recognition. The countless people who deal with this every single day and have no choice but to swallow their anger and move on. He straightened up. So yes, I accept the airline CEO's apology. I appreciate that he acknowledged what happened and called it what it was. Racial profiling, discrimination, those words matter. Acknowledgement matters. But words alone aren't enough. We need real change, systematic change, not just in airlines, but everywhere. His voice grew passionate. That's why I'm announcing today the creation of a foundation. It will be dedicated to fighting discrimination in the service industry. We'll provide anti-bias training that actually works, not just check-the-box exercises that companies do to protect themselves legally. We'll offer free legal support to people who face discrimination, but can't afford attorneys. We'll create reporting systems that actually hold companies accountable instead of protecting them. He could see people in the audience leaning forward, interested. I'm personally funding this foundation with $10 million to start, and I'm challenging other business leaders, especially those who look like me and have benefited from the opportunities this country provided, to join me, to use our resources and platforms to make real change. He paused. I'm also challenging companies. Don't wait for a viral video to do the right thing. Look at your own policies, your own complaints, your own culture. Ask yourself honestly whether all your customers are truly treated equally. And if the answer is no, fix it, not because you're afraid of bad publicity, but because it's right. His tone became more personal again. To the young woman who recorded that first video and stood up for me, thank you. You didn't have to do that. You could have stayed quiet, but you chose to speak up. That takes courage. To everyone who shared the videos and spoke out, thank you. Your voices made a difference. He looked directly into the cameras. To my children who had to watch their father be humiliated, I'm sorry you had to see that. But I want you to know that this doesn't define us. How we respond to injustice defines us. Always stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it costs you something, his voice caught slightly. To my wife, my rock, thank you for reminding me to tell the truth instead of just saying the right thing. He composed himself. And finally, to everyone watching who has experienced something similar, I see you. I believe you. Your experiences are valid. You're not being too sensitive. You're not imagining it. What happens to you matters, whether cameras are recording or not. Keep speaking up. Keep demanding better. Keep fighting for the world you deserve to live in. He stepped back from the podium. I won't be taking questions today. I've said what I needed to say. Now it's time for action, not more words. Thank you. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions anyway, but he walked away with his wife by his side. Outside, protesters who had been demonstrating against the airline started chanting his name. He stopped surprised and waved to them. They cheered. A young black woman broke through the crowd and approached him, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she said. Thank you for saying what so many of us feel. For using your voice for all of us. He hugged her, this stranger who somehow felt like family. In the car ride home, his wife held his hand. You did good, she said simply. He nodded, feeling lighter than he had in days. Not happy, exactly. The wound was still fresh, but purposeful. Like maybe something good could come from something painful. His phone buzzed with messages. His speech was already being shared millions of times. News outlets were running with the foundation announcement. Other business leaders were reaching out, offering to contribute. The airline's CEO called his lawyer within an hour, requesting a meeting. Several other airlines announced they were reviewing their policies proactively. But what touched him most were the personal messages. From people thanking him, from parents saying they showed the speech to their kids, from teachers saying they would use it in their classrooms. One message from a teenage boy said, I've been stopped by security 3 times this year in stores where I wasn't doing anything wrong. Watching what happened to you made me feel less alone. Thank you for speaking up. The businessman saved that message. He would read it whenever he doubted whether speaking up was worth it, because that was the real impact. Not the foundation or the policy changes or the corporate apologies, but the countless individuals who felt seen and heard and validated. That night, tucking his son into bed, the little boy asked, Dad, are you famous now? The businessman smiled. Maybe a little. But that's not what matters. What matters? His son asked, making things better. For everyone. That's what matters. His son nodded seriously, then hugged him tight. I'm proud of you, Dad. And in that moment, everything felt worth it. 3 months had passed since that day on the airplane. The businessman sat in his office looking at reports from his new foundation. They had received over 4,000 complaints from people who faced discrimination in various service industries. His legal team was reviewing cases, offering support where they could. The foundation had grown faster than he imagined. Other business leaders had contributed another $20 million. Major companies were requesting their training programs. 3 universities wanted to study their model, but the businessman knew that real change took time. The viral video had started conversations, but conversations alone didn't fix systematic problems. His assistant knocked on the door. "The airline CEO is here for your meeting." The businessman nodded. This would be their first face-to-face conversation since the incident. The CEO entered, looking older and more tired than he had on television. They shook hands and the businessman gestured to a chair. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," the CEO started. "I know you didn't have to." "I'm curious to hear what you have to say," the businessman replied honestly. The CEO pulled out a folder. "I wanted to show you what we've done in the past 3 months. Not for publicity, not to make ourselves look good, but because you deserve to know." He opened the folder. Inside were detailed reports. Jennifer had been fired as promised, but they had gone further. They had reviewed every discrimination complaint from the past 5 years. They found patterns they had missed before. Certain employees with multiple complaints, certain routes where incidents happened more often. "We terminated 6 more employees who had documented histories of discriminatory behavior," the CEO explained. "We created an independent review board that includes civil rights advocates. Every complaint now goes through them, not just our internal HR." The businessman listened carefully. "We've also implemented the training programs from your foundation at all our hubs. Over 15,000 employees have completed the first phase. Early feedback shows it's actually making people think differently." The CEO looked directly at him. "But I know actions matter more than reports. So I wanted to tell you about Maria." "Who's Maria?" "A Latina passenger who flew with us last week. She's a teacher, flying first class for the first time as a gift from her students who pooled their money together. One of our flight attendants noticed her crying and asked if she was okay. She said she was worried about being questioned, like, 'What happened to you?'" The CEO's voice was thick with emotion. The flight attendant sat with her, assured her she belonged there, made sure she felt welcome the entire flight. And when Maria posted about it online, thanking us for treating her with dignity, I realized that's what change actually looks like. Not policies on paper, but people acting differently in real moments. The businessman felt something shift. This was genuine. Not perfect, but genuine. "I appreciate you telling me that," he said. "But you know, one good experience doesn't erase the bad ones." "I know," the CEO agreed. "We're monitoring our own metrics now. Passenger complaints about discriminatory treatment are down 60%. But that's still not zero. We have a long way to go." They talked for another hour. The CEO asked about the foundation, offered additional support. They discussed ways airlines could do better, industry-wide changes that were needed. When the meeting ended, they shook hands again. Not quite friends, but no longer adversaries. Just 2 people trying to make things better. That evening, the businessman had another meeting. This one was different. Jennifer, the flight attendant who had started everything, had requested to speak with him. Her lawyer had reached out weeks ago. At first he had said no, but his wife convinced him to at least hear what she had to say. They met at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop. Jennifer arrived early, sitting in a corner booth. She looked smaller than he remembered. Less confident, her eyes were red like she had been crying recently. He sat down across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. "Thank you for coming," Jennifer finally said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," he admitted. She nodded, accepting that. "I've wanted to talk to you since that day. To really apologize. Not through lawyers or press releases. Just person to person." He waited, not making this easy for her. "What I did was wrong," Jennifer continued. "I know that now. But I need you to understand that I didn't think I was being racist. I genuinely believed I was just doing my job, being careful. But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? I saw you as someone who needed extra scrutiny because of how you looked, and I didn't even realize I was doing it." Her voice cracked. "I've spent 3 months in therapy, learning about implicit bias, about how the things I was raised to believe without even knowing I believed them affected how I treated people. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. What I did to you was racism, and I'm sorry." The businessman studied her. He could tell she had been crying, that this was hard for her. But his experience had been hard too. "You humiliated me," he said quietly, "in front of dozens of people. You made me prove I belonged somewhere I had every right to be. You questioned my character, my integrity, my worth as a person, and then you suggested I couldn't possibly afford to be there. Do you understand what that feels like?" Jennifer's tears fell freely now. "No, I can never truly understand. But I'm trying to be better. I lost my job, my reputation, most of my friends. But honestly, I deserve to lose those things. What you lost was your dignity, and you didn't deserve that." They sat in silence for a moment. "What do you do now?" he asked. "I'm working at a community center," she said. "Teaching English to immigrants. Making minimum wage. It's humbling, but it's good for me. I'm learning from people I never would have taken the time to know before, people I would have made assumptions about." The businessman considered her words. Part of him wanted to stay angry. It would be easier. But he thought about what he had said in his press conference, about real change requiring both accountability and transformation. "I appreciate you apologizing," he said finally. "Truly apologizing, not just saying words your lawyer wrote. That takes courage." Jennifer looked up, surprised. "But you need to understand that forgiveness isn't something you get just because you apologized. It's something that has to be earned over time, through consistent actions and growth." "I understand," she said. "What you can do is use this experience to help others learn. Speak honestly about your bias, about what you did wrong, about how you're trying to change. That might mean more than any apology ever could." Jennifer nodded. "My therapist suggested I might eventually do that. Share my story. If it helps even one person recognize their own biases before they hurt someone, it would be worth the embarrassment." They talked for a few more minutes, then parted ways. The businessman didn't know if Jennifer would truly change long term, but he believed she was trying, and that was something. The months continued passing. The foundation's impact grew. They had helped 53 individuals take legal action against discrimination. 41 had won their cases or received settlements. More importantly, they had changed policies at dozens of companies. Major retail chains adopted new protocols. Hotels implemented better training. Restaurants created accountability systems, all because people were paying attention now. Because one viral video had sparked a movement. The businessman gave talks at conferences. He shared his story, but more importantly, he elevated other voices. He brought people onto stages who had similar experiences but no platforms. He made sure the conversation wasn't just about him. A documentary filmmaker wanted to make a film about the incident. He agreed, but only if they focused on the broader issue, not just his personal story. The film ended up profiling 10 different people who had experienced discrimination in service industries. It won awards and was used in corporate training programs worldwide. His children grew up watching their father turn pain into purpose. His daughter wrote an essay about it for school that made him cry. His son told his teacher he wanted to help people like his dad did when he grew up. 1 year after the incident, the businessman received an invitation. The airline wanted to name their new diversity and inclusion center after him. He declined. "Name it after all the people who experienced discrimination but never got justice," he told them. "Make it a reminder of what you're working to prevent, not a celebration of fixing one mistake." They created the Center for Equal Service Excellence instead. It became a model for the industry. The businessman also received an invitation to speak at a high school in his old neighborhood. The school where he had grown up, where kids still faced limited opportunities. He stood in front of 200 students and told them his story. Not just about becoming successful, but about what happened on that plane. "Success doesn't protect you from racism," he told them. "Money doesn't make people see you differently. But you know what does? Using your voice. Standing up. Demanding better, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you." A young boy raised his hand. "But didn't it hurt? Having everyone see that video? Being embarrassed like that?" "Yes," the businessman answered honestly. "It hurt a lot. But you know what would have hurt more? Staying silent, letting it happen without saying anything, knowing I had the power to make change and choosing not to use it." After the talk, students lined up to ask questions, to share their own experiences, to thank him. One girl, no more than 16, waited until everyone else had left. "My mom is a housekeeper at a hotel," she told him. "White guests treat her like she's invisible. Sometimes they're mean to her for no reason. She comes home crying sometimes, but she can't say anything because she needs the job. The businessman's heart broke. What's the hotel called? She told him. The next week, his foundation reached out to that hotel. They offered free training. They worked with management to create better policies for protecting employees from guest harassment. It was small. One hotel in one city, but it mattered. That was the thing about change. It happened in small moments as much as big ones. In Maria, the teacher feeling welcomed on her flight. In Jennifer learning to recognize her biases. In one hotel protecting its housekeepers better. In students seeing that speaking up could make a difference. 2 years after the incident, the businessman boarded another airplane. First class again. Same airline, actually. His wife had asked if he wanted to fly with a different carrier, but he said no. If they've really changed, I want to see it, he explained. The flight attendant who greeted him was a young black woman. She smiled warmly. Welcome aboard, sir. Can I help you with your bag? I've got it. Thank you, he replied. She checked his boarding pass and directed him to his seat. Professional, courteous, normal. Everything that should have happened 2 years ago. As he settled into his seat, another passenger recognized him. An older white man across the aisle. I saw your speech, the man said. The one after the incident. It made me think about things differently. I'm a manager at a retail company. We implemented your foundation's training program. Thank you for doing that work. The businessman nodded. Thank you for being open to learning. The flight was smooth. The service was excellent. Nobody questioned him. Nobody made him feel like he didn't belong. It was ordinary. Unremarkable. Exactly how it should be. As the plane descended toward his destination, he looked out the window at the city below. Lights spreading out in all directions. Millions of people living their lives. How many of them had experienced what he had? How many were fighting their own battles against discrimination? His phone had a signal now. Messages started coming through. His assistant had sent him the latest foundation report. They had just reached a milestone. 10,000 people helped. 10,000 complaints reviewed. 10,000 voices heard that might otherwise have been ignored. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. He thought about that day on the plane. How humiliating it felt. How angry he was. How hurt. If someone had told him then that 2 years later he would have helped 10,000 people, would he have believed it? Maybe not. But he would have hoped. Hope was what kept you going. Hope that speaking up mattered. That fighting back against injustice made a difference. That the world could slowly, gradually, painfully, become a little bit better. The plane landed smoothly. As passengers gathered their belongings, the flight attendant who had greeted him approached. Sir, I just want to say, I know who you are. What happened to you was wrong. I'm glad things are changing because of it. Thank you, he smiled at her. Keep being excellent at your job. That's how we make sure it keeps changing, she grinned. Yes, sir. I will. He walked off the plane into the terminal. His wife was waiting at baggage claim. She hugged him tight. How was the flight? She asked. Normal, he said. Wonderfully, perfectly normal. She understood what he meant. They drove home together, talking about the kids, about dinner plans, about regular life. But in the back of his mind, he thought about Jennifer working at that community center, trying to be better. About Maria, the teacher, feeling welcomed on her flight. About the students who heard his story and felt empowered. About the 10,000 people his foundation had helped. Change was slow, incomplete, imperfect, but it was real. That night, his son asked him to read a bedtime story. Halfway through, the boy interrupted. Dad, remember when that mean lady on the plane said you didn't belong there? I remember, the businessman said. I'm glad you proved she was wrong. The businessman hugged his son close. I didn't prove her wrong, buddy. I proved that we all belong. Everywhere. No matter what we look like. And that when someone treats us like we don't, we speak up. We make it better for the next person. Is it better now? His son asked. The businessman thought about it. It's better than it was. Not as good as it should be, but getting there. Slowly getting there. His son seemed satisfied with that answer and settled in to hear the rest of the story. Later, lying in bed next to his wife, the businessman reflected on everything that had happened. The pain, the anger, the humiliation, but also the growth, the change. The impact, was it worth it? He didn't know. Nobody should have to experience discrimination to spark change. But since he did, at least he had used it to make things better. His wife's voice broke the silence. "You changed things," she said softly. "You really did." "We changed things," he corrected. "Everyone who spoke up, who shared the videos, who demanded better, we did it together." She squeezed his hand. Tomorrow, the foundation would help more people. More companies would implement better policies. More students would hear stories that empowered them. More flight attendants like that young woman would treat passengers with dignity because they knew it mattered. The work continued. It always would, but tonight he could rest, knowing that one terrible day on an airplane had become a catalyst for thousands of better days for countless people he would never meet. That was legacy. That was impact. That was change. And in the end, that made everything worth it.